Hello dear students, welcome back to online English classes. In the previous session, we have started with the poem titled The Schoolboy, written by William Blake. In the beginning of the session, we discussed about the two schools of thought that is there in the background of the poem, and they are the formal education and informal education, and what these schools of thoughts propagate as far as a child is concerned. And we have learned few information about the poet William Blake, his famous works as a poet and as an artist. And we have been discussing how the formal education curbs a learner's potential and takes all the joy of childhood, and how it hinders the child's growth forever. We all know that the speaker of the poem is the schoolboy. The first stanza of the poem starts with the boy's feeling, what he wants to do early in the morning. In the first stanza of the poem, you will find the boy is joyful and he loves to rise, he loves to awake in a fresh, delightful summer morning. Further, describing the beauty of the summer morning, the boy loves the chirping of the birds on every tree in a summer morning, and the sound of the horn that is blown by the distant huntsman, and the beautiful and sweet song of the skylark. And the boy calls all these things are a sweet company to him. But in the second stanza, the tone of the boy, that means the speaker of the poem, totally changes from a joy, delight, rejoicing and hope to dismay and joylessness. Because the thought of going to school on a summer morning drives all his joy away, takes all his joy away. It's a matter of utmost disappointment for the boy to attend the school in the delight of the summer. He is tired and even puzzled sitting in a school and sitting under the cruel eye of the teacher. Here, cruel eye refers to the teacher, the authoritarian ways of teaching. He is tired and even puzzled to sit under the strict supervision, strict surveillance and strict cruel look of the teacher. And the boy says, under the cruel eye outone, the little ones spend the day in sighing and dismay. Here the little ones refer to the other children who sit in the classroom. And how do they spend the day? The entire day from morning to evening, they spend the day in sighing and dismay. Here sighing means crying in regret, and dismay means feeling of fear and discouragement. They all discouraged, including the boy, by the cruel look of the teacher, from the authoritarian ways of teaching and tiresome activities of the school, tiresome aspects of the school. And in the third stanza, the boy, in order to avoid the cruel look of the teacher, droops his shoulders. That means he is bending his shoulder, is actually hiding behind another boy or another student who is sitting in front of him. And he says he spent many an anxious hour, many fearful hours, restless hours in anxiety, in fear, in misery. And he has to sit the whole day from morning to evening, several hours in anxiety, in fear. And he says he has to sit the whole day with those drooping shoulders. He's hiding. And then he says he does not have any interest, any delight, any happiness in his books and studies, because he thinks that they are the subjects which do not seem to be interesting. They are the subjects which go above his head. They are the subjects which he does not understand. And then he says he does not feel any joy sitting in a learning's bower. Here, learning bower is the metaphor of the school, which according to the boy is worn through with the dreary shower, which is hit by the dreary shower. Here the phrase dreary shower refers to the tiresome activities, tiresome aspects of the school. And this is how we have understood the first part of the poem with 3 stanzas discussed. The feeling of the little schoolboy, and what drives all his joy away, and how he feels sitting inside the school. Actually, it's a cry against the formal schooling. And it seems that the poet William Blake is against the schooling is done for the little children. Well, in this session, we will understand the remaining 3 stanzas of the poem, and let us understand and let us see how the boy expresses his feelings. Let us read and understand the 4th stanza of the poem. How can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? How can a child, when fears annoy, but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring? In the 4th stanza of the poem, the boy questions his readers and demanding an answer to a rhetorical question, and he pleads with whoever is listening to him, and he asks, how can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? Well, he knows that he is forced to sit in a school and he is forced to sit inside the classroom and he is asked to be happy and joyful. He cannot do so. He cannot be happy sitting inside the classroom, sitting under the cruel eye of the teacher, and he cannot be happy in a school because according to the schoolboy, the school looks like a cage. You see, birds are often captured and put into the cages for amusement. Even exotic birds are sold at a very high price to the people who parade them in the expensive cages. But if one has the courtesy, if one has an ounce of empathy, he will better understand the situation of the bird inside the cage. The plight of being alone, the plight of being confined to a small place for the rest of one's life. Birds are social creatures. They always love to fly, they always love to move in flock. And birds are actually the symbol of joy, freedom and independence. Being creatures with such strong sense of community, joy, freedom and independence, life inside the cage is akin to death. They suffer from loneliness being caged. Even if you put them inside the golden cage and feed them exotic foods and feed them costly foods, nothing can be compared to the freedom they experience in the wild. There is nothing more inhuman denying a bird its right to be free. Similarly, children are the symbol of joy, freedom and independence. Similarly, childhood represents joy, freedom and independence. But in these lines, the boy compares himself to a caged bird. He compares himself to a bird which is trapped inside the cage. According to the boy, the school represents the cage. He is like a bird born to be free, born to enjoy his life, born to remain free. But he is denied of the joy of freedom which he is supposed to enjoy in his childhood. And he says that he has lost all the joy of childhood sitting inside the school, which he considers as the cage. So he rhetorically asks questions to his readers. How can the bird that is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? That means, how can a boy be forced to sit in the school and asked to be happy and joyful? Here, the bird means the boy and the cage means the school. We all know that the pleasure of childhood lies in being happy and joyful like a bird. But here the poet compares the boy in the school to a bird in a cage. He says that as a bird which is unhappy in the cage, so is the boy in the school. And he says that a child who is scared away by the cruel look of the teacher, by the authoritarian ways of teaching, by the scary atmosphere of the school, by the crazy and unrealistic expectations of parents cannot be happy and joyful. And then he says, how can a child when fears annoy but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring? Here he asks, how can a child who is scared by the cruel look of the teacher, parents, and who has to sit under the strict surveillance can forget the joy of childhood, can forget the joy of freedom? But what he can do, he cannot expect the freedom sitting inside the school, sitting inside the classroom. He cannot ask for freedom in that condition, but all that he can do is he droop his tender wing, the wings of freedom, the wings of childhood, which is given by God. But what he can do, he can only droop his tender wing. That means suppressing his fresh and innocent desires and aspirations, and thus his tender wings are locked, and thus remains joyless and longs for the freedom. Here the boy turns to beg on behalf of the other children. He makes the case to all those who are trapped inside the school. He professes to worry about other children, and he says, when they are all sitting under the cruel look of the teacher, sitting under the strict vigilance of the teacher and experience the boredom, what they can do? They can only droop their tender wings. That means suppressing their fresh, innocent desires and aspirations. And they are also forced to forget their youthful spring. And these children, like the schoolboy, missing the joy of childhood sitting inside the school. And that's why he says, how can a child when fears annoy? Here fears annoy means when the fear hurts him, but droop his tender wing and forget his youthful spring. Spring season is known as the nature's youth. It marks the new beginning. It's a season of new birth, rejuvenation, and it gives fun and excitement. Here the phrase youthful spring refers to the delightful, fresh, innocent and sweet childhood, which is very, very productive, which is very, very enthusiastic. But here the boy says, how can the bird which is born for joy sit in a cage and sing? That means, how can a boy, how can a child who is born for freedom like a bird sit inside the school and ask to be happy and joyful? And how can a child, when fears annoy, when all sorts of tiresome activities of the school, tiresome aspects of the school put him in an utmost fear, when all those fears hurt him by the discouragement of the teacher or the parents or the unusual expectations or the unrealistic expectations of teachers and parents hurt him, but what he can do in that time? All that he can do is droop his tender wings. That means hide his tender wings, suppressing his fresh, innocent desires and aspirations. And he also asked, how can he forget his youthful spring? That means, how can a child forget the joy of childhood, forget the purpose of childhood, which is very, very productive, which is very enthusiastic, which is very active? Well, let us move on to the next stanza, that is stanza number 5. In the 5th stanza, the speaker of the poem, that means the boy, turns to address his parents, and he believes that they are the ones who could possibly change his situation, who could possibly understand his situation. And he believes that he can convince them. And in the 5th stanza, the boy presents the reasons why they should not force him to go to school, why they should not ask him to go and sit inside the classroom. Here the boy, he is in conversation with his parents, and he is requesting his parents to realize his plight of being confined inside the school. He wants them to understand the dangers of suppressing natural growth and natural learning. Let us read and understand the 5th stanza. O father and mother, if buds are nipped and blossoms blown away, if the tender plants are stripped of their joy in the springing day by sorrow and care's dismay. Here in these lines, the speaker of the poem, that means the schoolboy, talks about his own childhood joys as being buds that are being nipped and blossoms that are blowing away. The word buds refers to a compact growth on a plant which later develops into a flower and leaf. So what happens here? It has been nipped. Nipped means to pinch sharply, to squeeze sharply. The word blossoms means flowers. Here in the context of the poem, blossoms refer to the natural faculties, natural growth of the children that are being blown away. Here blown away means moved away. Here in the context of the poem, we can say it is killed. It is killed by the society. It is killed by the expectations, unrealistic expectations of parents. His happiness is delicate like a tender plant. He should not be subjected to sorrow and care's dismay. He should not be feel sad and lonely in his childhood. When a budding child is picked or nipped or suppressed and swept off at the early stages of his childhood in an ocean of sorrows and dismay, when there is no one to care for, when there is no one to listen to his plight, his state is compared to a damaged nature which can bear no fruit and which can have no harvest when the summer comes. That means when the boy grows up, when the boy grows old, he cannot have a productive life. He cannot have a fruitful life. If care and concern overrule the buds, flowers, blossoms, such summer, such life, such future will be dry. In that case, the summer bear no fruit and it would not have a good harvest. So here the poet compares the child to a budding plant and asks the father and mother, how can the plant give beautiful flowers if buds are nipped and blossoms are cut away? If the tender branches of the plant strip off, it will affect the natural growth of the plant. Children are also like tender plants. If their buds, leaves and blossoms are nipped and striped, here buds, blossoms and leaves refer to the natural faculties, the natural growth of children, especially in their childhood, which is very productive, which is very active, which is very enthusiastic. So here the poet asks, if their buds, leaves and blossoms are nipped and striped out, how can the children have a natural growth? Well, it may look strange for the people of the sophisticated society where a grooming of a child with formal schooling is considered to be an essential of childhood. The poet William Blake, on the other hand, considers formal schooling or formal education is a way in which buds are nipped and blossoms are blown away. That means the natural faculties, the natural ability of a child to grow himself is stripped, he is pinched. Well, we are all familiar with the expression that today's children are tomorrow's adults. So, what sort of start in life are parents giving their children when they ship them off to a place of anxiety, cruelty and misery? Let us move on to the next stanza. How shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer's fruit appear? Or how shall gather what griefs destroy, or bless the mellowing ear when the blast of winter appear? Here in these lines, the poet says that a child cannot be happy in the summer day. Here, summer day refers to the bright years of his life when he grows older, when everyone expects him to be a good citizen of the society, to be a responsible member of the family, and they expect a lot of things from him. So, summer refers to the age of development. Summer refers to the age of prosperity in his life. So the poet says that a child cannot be happy and joyful in the summer day when he grows old if he is denied, if he made to undergo sorrows and dismay in his childhood. When he is confined to a small place, when he is confined, when he is restricted in a place which he doesn't like in his childhood, but when he grows up, but when he grows older, his summer day will not be fruitful. It will not be prosperous. And the poet also feels that a child cannot be fruitful if he is burdened with sorrow and dismay. Once if the natural ability of a child is destroyed, the boy, when he grows older, he cannot stand by himself when the difficult times of his life appear. It will be like the blast of winter. Here the blast of winter refers to the difficulties and challenges that arise, that comes, that appears in his life unexpectedly. During the softening years, during the time of development, during the time of prosperity in his life, many difficulties and challenges will appear. In those years, he won't have the confidence and courage to face the difficulties of his life, because when he was a child, he was suppressed, he was confined in a place where he lost all his joy of his childhood. But now when he grows old, he finds it very difficult to face the reality of the world. Here the phrase mellowing year refers to productive time, when everybody expects him to be a good citizen of the society, to be a responsible member of the family, and the people around him expects a lot of things from him, a lot of good things from him. Lot of responsibility will come on his shoulders that he has to carry until he dies. So when he reaches the mellowing year, he finds it very difficult, because when he was a child, he was not free to explore his thoughts. He was deprived to enjoy the joy of childhood. So it will definitely affect when he grows old. And the phrase winter blast refers to the difficulties and challenges that a child faces in his life when he grows old. And that's why he says, how shall the summer arise in joy, or the summer's fruit appear? Here fruit means the result. When he grows up, the way everybody expects him to be a responsible person, to be an innovative person, and the boy expresses his grief. How shall we gather what griefs destroy? What is over is already over. So what are the things, what are the joy that he has lost in his childhood, he cannot bring back. So what is lost is totally lost. He cannot bring his childhood into the future. So that is why he says childhood is a precious time. And likewise, the poet William Blake brings out the child's experience in a school which drives the boy's joy away. The poem teaches us, being parents, we should take care of our children. It is our duty to see that our children are joyful, happy, and free. If we want our childhood to be fruitful, to be prosperous when they grow old, we need to make their childhood happy. So the schoolboy, the speaker of the poem, concludes by asking his parents how children can be expected to grow into great adults, to grow into prosperous adults, if they are put in such unpromising atmosphere like that of a school. Such a springing day, a time of potential, will not develop into a prosperous summer. It will be like a blast of winter, which they cannot face easily when the time comes, when the challenges and difficulties come in their life. Well, I will conclude my session here. But before I conclude my session, I have a few questions for you to check your understanding. You can take down the questions, and the questions are: question number 1, why the schoolboy hates to go to school? Question number 2, find 3 or 4 words or phrases in stanza 1 that reflect the child's happiness and joy. Question number 3, what does the phrase a cruel eye refer to? Question number 4, what drives the boy's joy away? Question number 5, what does cage metaphorically refer to in the poem? Write answers to these questions and send it back to us through WhatsApp. Thank you.